You're listening to WOSD. I'm your host, Lydia Foster, from the Marketing and Communications Unit of the Operational Services Division. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the OSD podcast. Today's episode is State Surplus Property Program 101, and joining me is Surplus Property Coordinator Ted Bunnell. The State Surplus Property Office, or SSPO, serves a unique function within the Operational Services Division. It also is among OSD's most popular services online and regularly is among our highest trafficked web pages. Let's catch up with Ted to learn more about the SSPO. This is Lydia Foster, Marketing and Communications Manager for the Operational Services Division, and today I am joined by Surplus Property Coordinator Ted Bunnell. Thanks for joining us, Ted.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, talk about some surplus property.
Could you start off by telling us what is the Surplus Property Program and what role it serves in the Commonwealth?
Yeah, sure. The State Surplus Property Office exists within the Operational Services Division and oversees the Surplus Property Program in Massachusetts. Most of what we do falls into one of four buckets, kind of. We manage the distribution, reallocation of all state-owned usable surplus property. We oversee the disposal of any worthless, old, or obsolete property or broken property. We facilitate the state auction process, which is how we get property into the hands of the general public and also generate revenue for the Commonwealth. We act as an agent for the federal government and facilitate the federal surplus property program in Massachusetts, which I can talk about a little bit more in a minute. But overall, the purpose of our program is to ensure that the Commonwealth realizes the maximum benefit from state-owned surplus property. Maximum benefit doesn't necessarily mean revenue or sale of property. Maximum benefit is often the reallocation of an asset to an entity in need that we work with. So it becomes cost savings versus revenue generation. And then finally, one of the other great benefits to what we do in the surplus property program is that we're giving this property a second life. We're keeping it out of landfills as often as possible, which is great because it's in line with the Commonwealth's green initiatives as well. And then, like I had touched on earlier, finally, the federal surplus property program in Massachusetts is administered by our office, similar to the state surplus property program. When the state has surplus property available, they make it available to state agencies and towns and municipalities and other entities within Massachusetts. When the federal government has surplus property available, they make it available to the states, and we work with our customers, the towns and state agencies in Massachusetts, to help get that property for them and to them so that they can use that. We act as their agent in obtaining that property for them.
So who is eligible for the surplus property program?
So the surplus property program in Massachusetts is available to state agencies, towns and municipalities, and certain nonprofits are eligible to claim property as well. So when a state agency has usable surplus property, they report it to the surplus property office via an online portal that we created. From there, it goes up onto our surplus property website. It has photos, a description of the item, all pertinent information relating to the item. Eligible entities that we work with then can log into the site and can put a request in for anything they want that's on there. Once we approve the request, we put the entity in touch with the agency that's actually holding the property, and they make arrangements to pick it up. We're a little different in Massachusetts compared to most states. Most states have a central location or warehouse for their surplus property where everything in the state goes to one area. We don't do that in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, the property stays with the agency that's holding it until it's either reallocated, approved for disposal, or sold via auction. We find that this process is much more efficient, and it also keeps us in line with our green initiatives in Massachusetts because we're not using trucks to drive property around to different places, and we're not wasting, manpower and people's hours and loading trucks and bringing stuff from one location to another location. We like to say that we move information and not property.
And what is your role in the surplus property program?
So I am the state surplus property coordinator. I oversee the day-to-day activities and operations of all things surplus. So I work with our state agencies to ensure compliance with the policies and regulations that govern surplus property. I work with our municipal and nonprofit customers to obtain state and federal surplus property. And I work with our contracted auction vendor to oversee the state auction process, which is how we move our vehicles and related equipment.
What sorts of items are typically available through the surplus property program?
So often it's office furniture such as desks and chairs and electronics and laptops and printers and things like that. There's also can be tools and clothing and PPE and medical supplies, and just a variety of a lot of different items. Really anything except for land and buildings filters through our office. So if you think about, a state agency that may manage the maintenance of parks or public areas, they're going to have a lot of things like lawnmowers and tools and that type of related equipment. Where if it's like a public health organization, they may have, in addition to office furniture, they may have PPE and things like that that may filter from them. So there's a lot of different things. It's pretty much everything and anything that we deal with. We also regularly host vehicle auctions online, which are available to the general public. Obviously, to find those auctions, you would go to our vendor's website, which is auctionsinternational.com. Search for the Mass OSD labeled auctions on the item map. We also usually post about our new auctions on social media, so make sure you're connected with OSD on LinkedIn and Twitter.
I've heard that you've worked on a few item transfers that were not exactly run-of-the-mill office furniture. Could you tell us a bit about some of the more surprising surplus items that have come through?
Yeah, just when you think, you've seen it all, something new always tends to pop up. Back a couple years ago, we worked with a state-owned farm in Templeton, and it had about 30 milking cows on the property. The farm was closing and the property was being sold, so we had to get the cows moved. We were able to relocate about 10 of the cows to local agricultural schools, but took them and used them as part of their programs and part of their teaching, which was great. The rest of them we sold at auction, and the buyers came and picked them up, and they actually had to get them checked out by vets before they were able to take them off the property. So there was a lot of hoops for them to jump through, but it was great. It worked out wonderful, and we were able to get them all moved. It was really quite an interesting process, especially trying to get photos of the cows. They weren't exactly cooperative, and we had to chase them around the barns and the fields, trying to make them look photogenic and take pictures of them. But it all worked out really well in the end, and we had a lot of happy people from that auction. And then what was great is after we had moved the cows out of there was all the equipment that was used to take care of the cows and the milking, the various holding tanks, and there was even like some cheese making products and things that we had to get rid of. So through our auction process, we were actually able to basically clean out the entire barn and the entire farm, so that really the only thing left was the actual structure in the field itself, which made selling the property that much easier. On the federal surplus side of things, we've obtained some interesting items for our partner agencies. One of those was we actually, a couple years back, acquired a Falcon jet airplane from the federal government for Cape Cod Community College. And you might be wondering why a college needs a private jet, as I was too at the time, but as it turned out, they have a wonderful aviation mechanics program where their students learn how to work on and maintain aircraft and prepare for a career in the field of aviation mechanics. So once we completed the necessary paperwork for the transfer, the plane was actually flown from its location with the federal government to the Plymouth airport where the program is run out of, and it was parked in a hangar there. It was then decommissioned so that it would never go back up into the air again, and instead now is just used for training for the students there.
Great. Ted, thank you for chatting with me today. Anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Thank you for having me. It's been great. If you're interested in learning more about surplus property, please go on mass.gov and search surplus property. And if you are interested in becoming an eligible entity, please reach out to us and we would be happy to walk you through that process.
That was Ted Bunnell, Surplus Property Coordinator for the Operational Services Division. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
This concludes today's episode, State Surplus Property Program 101. For more information about the State Surplus Property Program, simply search Surplus Property on mass.gov. You also may email the team at OSD_SSPO@mass.gov. OSD looks forward to engaging with you on our social media and YouTube accounts. Links to those are in the description box. To suggest ideas for future podcasts, simply email the team at osdoutreach@mass.gov. Thanks again to Ted Bunnell for lending his expertise. This podcast was engineered and edited by Layla Palmer and produced and hosted by me, Lydia Foster. Thanks for listening.